They need to know that they have to get in their decisions by May 1st so that the colleges know how to proceed.
Shouldn't you know what school you're going to? Why do people procrastinate so much with meeting that
That's
deadline?
a great question. I do think right now students do know, but they just haven't physically submitted their decision yet. I think with the internet now and the quick exchange of ideas, there's students that want to entertain other options as well.
Right. And how are those options looking? How was the admissions process this time around?
So schools are very selective, and they seem to get more and more selective every year. It's important to know that the majority of students are still applying to schools that are accepting more than 50% of their applicant pools. But
That's good.
Yes, that's good. But we tend to focus on the really highly selective, highly visible schools.
And that's where Ivy-wise comes in. So if we look at those highly selected Ivy League and Ivy-ish league schools,
Yes.
top-tier schools,
Sure.
how tough is it to get in these days?
There's a number of schools that they accepted less than 10% of their applicant pool this year.
And they're receiving record numbers of applications.
They are, yeah. So Boston University, they received over 8,000 more applications this year than they did, compared to last year.
Why?
Well, it's maybe increased recruitment. Maybe it's some new programs on campus.
Right.
I think schools in general, the deans of admissions, the directors of enrollment, they're very good at their jobs, and their job is to cultivate applications. So oftentimes, it can come down to encouraging students to apply, maybe by using a fee waiver, by targeted marketing.
They want the best and brightest in their applicants.
Yes, right.
UCLA, nearly 100,000 undergrad applications,
Yes.
including freshmen as well as transfers,
Right.
more than any four-year university in the entire country.
Yeah, we have
100,000.
Yeah, so the UC system as a whole is receiving a lot of applications from out of state, and then also from international locations as well.
Right. Is part of this because of the job market?
The increase in applications?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say necessarily that it is directly related to the
coming
job
from high
market.
school, they're not going
they're
back
not
to
necessarily
school.
thinking about the job market yet. I think maybe their parents are thinking of the job market, but I think students are. I mean, it's a great time to go to college.
Yes.
Right.
However, it's a very expensive time.
It is an expensive
to go to college, and there's the headline every other day here, and at every major TV and news outlet is the cost of college isn't worth it. And we hate saying it, we hate doing that story, but that is a concern for many families.
It is, and I think if you've done a good college search, and if financial aid is part of your search process, I think you have to have a very balanced list where you know you'll get a great financial aid package at least some of your schools.
So how many schools did you apply to?
Well, our kids typically apply between 8 and 12 schools. 8 and 10 is usually a good number.
Okay.
10 to 12 is comfortable as well.
But kids are doing like 20.
Yeah, we do know of some kids that have applied to multiple 20 up to 20 schools.
So I want to talk about that wait list now.
Sure.
I was waitlisted to several schools. I don't know if you were, but this is you get waitlisted. You really want to go to the waitlisted school. What do you do to increase your chances of getting in? Because some schools have met or exceeded, the wait list has met or exceeded the number of admissions.
Right.
So for instance, Lehigh University, 3,800 admitted, 3,300 waitlisted.
Right.
That's,
So Bates is another great example. They typically admit about 1,200 students, and they've waitlisted about 2,000 students this year. It sounds like a lot, but they know in talking to Bates that they will receive they'll have about 300 to 500 students remain on the wait list from the 2,000 that they initially put on the wait list. So a lot of the students that they put on the wait list might not want to remain on the wait list.
Are these schools the level school where those students might have why these level schools, I guess, is my question.
So I think even the most selective schools will have a wait list.
That big?
Yes. Well, maybe not necessarily that big.
Right.
It really depends on their enrollment model. Some schools know that they don't want to use a wait list, so they'll accept more students than they need during the regular admissions process. But if a school wants to decide that they want to be as selective as they can, they can accept a very small number and then use the wait list to fill in the spots.
So if you're on the wait list and you want to get off of the wait list, what should you do?
Well, the first and most important thing is to follow the directions that the wait list tells you. Some schools want to see a letter or an additional update, but some other schools don't want an additional update.
A letter saying, hey,
maybe
you
a letter of
waitlisted me, but
recommendation.
if you accept me, I will most definitely attend.
Yes, a letter that's very transparent in saying that, yes, if admitted off the wait list, I will attend.
And what happens if you say that and then you don't attend?
Well, so there's checks and balances. So a lot of schools will do a phone call to see, okay, is this student still interested in our wait list? Some students will actually submit something, and then and that happens. Sometimes you go to the wait list and you ask that student because they indicated through a letter that they want to remain on the wait list, and their minds might change, and that's okay.
What are some other things that you should do to ensure that you get off the wait list and into
the
school?
Well, that's great. I think some of the big myths, the common myths, are that you have to have a gimmick, you have to do a YouTube video, you have to send something in, right? And I think that for every baked good that you hear about, there's dozens and dozens that you don't hear about. You know? So you don't feel like you have to do that. But what can really help you from the wait list is your friends that are not on the wait list. If they let the schools know where they're attending, and more importantly, where they're not attending, then schools have a better sense of whether or not they have to use the wait list.
That's a good point. So you contact the university and you say, look, you waitlisted me. Thank you. I just want you to know that I opened my spot up on the wait list for someone else who might attend.
Exactly. I'm planning to attend so-and-so school, and that can help a school know.
Now, you got into some schools, you got waitlisted to some schools, you breathe a sigh of relief, let's enjoy the rest of my senior year, don't worry about your grades. True?
No, right. That's a common misconception. I think you hear a lot about senior slump, and really, from a college readiness standpoint, the better you do academically as a senior, the more prepared you're going to be. But let's say you do get off the wait list, and you're looking for that particular student from, let's say, Arizona, and a chemistry major from Arizona, and that student happens to show a decline in grades, a significant decline in grades second semester. So that student's very unlikely going to be pulled off the wait list.
And when do you know when you're getting pulled off the wait list?
So the majority of students will find out after the May 1st deadline, but some schools
have...
well, they want to keep it short. They want to try to do it as soon after as possible, because the longer you wait, if you wait till July or August, a lot of those students have emotionally committed to other schools.
That's true. That's a good point. Nat, thank you so much for
coming
on. Great insight. I hope we helped a lot of families out there. I remember my decision. I was down to 2 schools, and I decided the night before. I'll never forget it. I think I made the right choice. All right, Nat Smittable, thank you so much. College admissions counselor with IvyWise. We appreciate your time. Your website is on the screen. All right, let's head out to Atlanta, Georgia. We have Russ Crossan, the president and CEO of Ronald Blue, joining us. Hi, Russ.
Hey, Lauren. Good morning. How are you?